Hi, I'm Alexandra, a psychic spiritual counselor, and welcome to Alexandra's Psychic Eye. Many people believe that 2012 marks the end of civilization in the physical sense. And then there are those like Edgar Cayce, the famous psychic of the early 20th century, who believe this will mark the dawn of a renewed and spiritual awareness for all of us. Let's just see what may be in store and how we may prepare for it. So don't go away. We'll be right back after this message. Welcome back to Alexandra's Psychic Eye. Reverend Maria DeAndrea Solomon is an internationally known professional psychic from Budapest, Hungary, a psychic spiritual speaker and a specialist in the area of metaphysics. And she has some amazing insights regarding the topic of 2012. Welcome to our show, and you've been here before, and we've loved having you, and my viewers loved you also.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. We always have such a great time.
Yes, you're such a fascinating person. Now, we seem to be in a transitional time period, Reverend. If you look at everything going on in the world, which is so chaotic, there's so much change. Nothing is the way that it was. Although there's always change in general, it just seems that there's tremendous more change than the normal change, if there's such a thing as normal. Now, is this a prelude to changes expected in 2012? What is going on?
We're going through a time of planetary shift, which also means that we're going through major changes. We're going through a dimensional shift. So in a dimensional shift, it takes a lot of time. It's not something that happens overnight. People always think
What do you mean a dimensional shift?
We're shifting from one energy level to a different frequency level. So the planet goes through changes normally.
Right.
What happens is we're going with it, we're changing with it, and as the shift comes in, people always look at it as going to happen in 2012. And really it doesn't work like that, because planetary shifts and energies don't go by a man-made calendar.
Right.
So we already started the shift, then it's going to transition around 2012, and then it ebbs and flows. So it's going to flow past that for a couple of years.
So it's a positive
It's a very, very positive
shift.
Oh, it's bringing positive energy into our lives.
Beautiful.
So that we can improve it. We can work with the flow.
It's like Age of Aquarius.
Exactly. And it's very, very positive. And the more we focus ourselves on being optimistic and positive and at peace and, positive thoughts, the easier we flow with the energy. If somebody's focused on negative, then that's what they're attracting in.
So what would you recommend to my viewers for them to bring more positivity into their world and the world?
Well,
what would you recommend
one
they
of the
do?
situations
and
that
how can they do this? Because you have quite a collection, a library here of books on how to terminate stress with meditation strategies, magical oils, psychic vibrations of crystals, gems, and stones, empowerment books. So how would you empower them right now to bring out the positive so that their lives will be positive, that will flow out into the environment, and we'll have a more positive world?
Definitely. What we think really influences the people around us, we really do create our own reality. So if we're focused, as an example, on the optimistic situations in our lives, as an example, if you have a very negative situation, there's always something positive in it. And if you focus on that instead of on the negative, you're creating more of a positive environment and space for yourself. Your energy spiritually starts to become more and more positive and changes with the dimensional shift. And then you're more in sync with the planetary shift.
How about an example? Let's take your average Mr. and Mrs. Smith family. Something's going on. They're about to lose their home. How can they turn that around? They're going into
there
foreclosure.
are two things. Okay, there are two things. Sometimes you can't change the situation literally, but you can make it so whatever the outcome is positive for you. So if somebody is focused on not what the situation is in that type of setting, if they're focused on, my life will always be positive, I will have a positive outcome, the universe and I take care of myself, of my family. If you're focused on your life and the people you care about, of course, if you're focused on your life being positive and everything flowing in that direction, then either something will come in where at the last minute, the person, example, can get a new job where they make a lot more money and that avoids the foreclosure. It can go into foreclosure, but now they have to move out of state as an example. They're very unhappy with it. And I've actually had a client go through this situation. And after they moved, and he moved to North Carolina. He wasn't too thrilled about it initially.
Right.
But in the long run, he ended up buying a farm, and he was out of Brooklyn. You would not have thought that.
My goodness, that's quite a shift.
And that was a couple of years ago. And he's ecstatic now because he had teenage children. They're not on the street. They're not in the gangs.
Beautiful.
You know, they avoided drugs. It's a totally different environment.
So from
and they're all very happy.
Came a good.
But they were focused on the outcome, not the foreclosure.
Right. So they weren't saying, okay, this is a bad thing. They were saying, see, I have many students and clients that come to me from all over the nation, all over the world, and they call in also on radio on Sunday nights. And one of the things I always tell them is that from a bad could come a good. I'm an example of that. I had MS. It's a fatal disease. I was healed, that brought out my gift, and now I've been doing this healing work for many, many years. So what you're saying is maybe you're going to foreclosure, but if you give that to the universe and say, bring me all the positive things that can come from this, whatever they are, even though we don't know what they are.
And sometimes I find people make a mistake where they focus on, they want this particular situation. They don't want the house to go into foreclosure no matter what. You know, now with this gentleman, if he would have stayed there, his children, well, they were teenagers, they were already heading towards that. So 2 years later,
drugs.
2 years later, they could have been into drugs, they could have been with the street
gangs. So they
gangs.
needed to be pulled out.
Exactly.
In
now,
a very dramatic way.
And he didn't see it at the time.
After
After they moved, he realized the difference because his children started talking to him more, as opposed to never being in the home.
What's the whole idea from a bad
positive.
From a bad comes a good, and I always tell my clients this and my students, from a bad comes a good. Now, you were talking about the planetary shift. So that's what you're saying. It's a shift. Well, people are talking about negative, but it's really positive.
No, it's very positive. It's a little of both. Let me explain it this way. It's mainly positive because what it's doing in the planetary shift is it brings out everybody's abilities. It heightens whatever your natural abilities are. So as an example, you're phenomenal at public speaking and at teaching. So if you didn't know that, all of a sudden now you would realize that you have that ability. Whether you use it or not, that's free will. But you'd be aware that you have that ability.
Now let me ask you a question, just being the devil's advocate here in the what about the planetary shift would make me come to realize that I have the ability to speak and teach?
Okay. Well, we have what we call ley lines or dragon lines. They're energy grids that run through the universe, through the planet, through us.
Ley lines
through
and
everything.
dragon lines.
Right. And they're energy grids that are always there. And they flow through the universe.
Does Con Edison know about these things?
Now, if we could tap into it. But what happens is as the Earth goes through shifts, like I said, we're going through shifts to 2012, then we'll have a transition, and then we'll flow out of that. And as the energy of the Earth changes, the same energy flows through all of us, so we change along with it. So it's bringing out our heightened energy. So the frequency of the energy of the frequency of the light, for lack of a better word, is moving up. And as the frequency moves up, we're all moving up with it. So it'll heighten your abilities. You'll be more aware of what you want to do. So this is a great time. If you wanted to, as an example, switch jobs, because it's going to bring out your natural abilities. It's going to point out, you know, you've been doing this for 30 years, you're sick of it. This is something you can switch into that you're good at. It's a time for new beginnings. Right. Now, if somebody is very focused on negative, you know how we always have some people where they always have a headache. Yes. And if they don't have one, they're actually looking for, I always have one, I know I'm going to get one. They always carry 8 million drugs and aspirins, and you know, because they know they have one coming in. Right. So when they're focused on more negativity, then that's what they're bringing in. So they actually will get more headaches than whatever their norm was. Right. So your focus is very important. That's why I was saying, you know, even if you don't have a particular situation, if you're just focused on the universe or God or whoever you happen to believe in, if you're saying, as an example, the universe always takes care of me or always takes care of my family and I, then that's really basically all you have to focus on. You're focused on a positive outcome in your life.
So the summary here of what you're saying so far is that the planetary shift going towards 2012
it always goes through cycles.
Is what?
The planet always goes through cycles.
Right,
and we're going with it.
Cycles, okay, and we are going with it, and it's a positive energy. It's a heightened frequency, so it makes us more sensitive, more attuned, more powerful, and more open to our psychic spiritual gifts.
And people are going to be much more intuitive now.
I've noticed that.
Yeah. I find most of my clients are businessmen, and they just like to call it a gut feeling, which is fine. It's the same energy, but it'll heighten more.
Or I get a feeling. They're afraid to say
much
my
more spiritual.
Psychic, right. See, but when I have people come to me, I say, look, it's your psychic ability. This is your envelope covering your spirit, and you are a spirit, you know, God.
Spiritual being.
Right, you're a spiritual being and powerful. Just let it out. Don't be afraid of it. Don't be afraid to call it spirituality. Right. Now, are these changes preordained, or is it that we feel we need to have a change? What's the driving force behind the changes?
Okay. Well, I find that there are two reasons for the changes. One, as I said, is that we're going along with the planetary energy. Okay. And the second part...
We're very cooperative.
Well, the people that are not are going to have a harder transition.
Okay.
But hopefully most people are going to be focused on the positive.
Okay.
The second part is the outlook en masse with society around the globe. So if you look at an example, if you look at some of the countries that are very in upheaval, okay, or if you look at a country where there's constant turmoil,
yes,
okay, that's the mindset of people. So if you look at, as an example, areas where they have tornadoes, okay, if you look at the people in those areas, their mindset is very chaotic. Yes. They're not sure what to do. That doesn't mean that they're negative. It means they're not sure which way to go. So they have emotional ups and downs. They can't make really good judgment calls because they're trying to decide. Doesn't make them negative, but it does make them chaotic. So they're actually creating. Now, if they're positive, yes, then they have a country that's more at peace, calmer, less stressed.
See, I agree. And I've noticed when I do that, everything changes in my life. However, playing the devil's advocate again will say, well, they're chaotic and they're confused and they're dissettled because they live in a place where they never know when there's going to be, you know, an upheaval from the ground up. Right. So you're going to have the person that's, the naysayers. So how would you respond to them?